You commonly assume that the decisions you make are entirely your own, freely chosen and uninfluenced. You are convinced that your interpersonal relationships, your aspirations, and the challenges you face are all direct manifestations of your unique individuality and personal agency. However, Carl Jung, a prominent figure in analytical psychology, brought to light a profound truth that most individuals are unwilling to confront. A significant portion of your existence is being intricately shaped, subtly influenced, and discreetly orchestrated by specific personality archetypes that you fail to consciously recognize or identify. These archetypes do not overtly declare their presence. They do not bear explicit labels or identifiers for easy recognition. Instead, they navigate through your life with the stealth and subtlety of shadows, leaving in their wake a complex array of emotions such as bewilderment, intense attraction, profound frustration, or deep-seated fear. The moment you begin to perceive these archetypal influences for what they genuinely are, you will come to a startling realization regarding the immense and enduring power they have consistently wielded over your life. The fundamental truth is this: personality extends far beyond mere eccentricities or habitual behaviors. It is an inherent energy, a potent force. It represents the intrinsic manner in which individuals draw you into their orbit, skillfully manipulate your attention, and subtly sway your choices without ever needing to issue a direct command or explicit request. Jung's extensive research wasn't solely focused on the individual psyche. He delved deeply into the study of archetypes, the deeply ingrained foundational structures of human nature. He discerned that concealed within these fundamental structures are specific personality patterns that have perpetually orchestrated and guided the intricate tapestry of human behavior throughout history. When you acquire the ability to perceive these patterns with clarity, you will gain an understanding of why certain individuals render you feeling utterly powerless, why particular relationships seem to consume your very essence, and why certain recurring life patterns persist with the relentless inevitability of a curse. The initial architect of mental seduction. The first category of such influential personalities is the manipulator of desire. This individual is characterized by their indirect approach. They never explicitly instruct you on what actions to take. Instead, their method involves meticulously cultivating an environment or atmosphere in which you are irresistibly drawn to desire precisely what they themselves desire. They are not invariably attractive in the conventional or obvious sense. On occasion, they might be reserved and quiet. At other times, they project an air of authority and command. Sometimes they exude an undeniable charm, while at others they appear vulnerable and wounded. Nevertheless, their formidable power originates from a singular, highly refined skill: the capacity to ignite your deepest cravings and then strategically keep the object of that craving just beyond your immediate grasp. Consider, for instance, the friend whose approval you desperately seek and crave, or the romantic partner who provides just enough intermittent attention to keep you perpetually entangled and emotionally invested. Or perhaps the charismatic leader who convinces you that they alone possess the exclusive pathway to true meaning and purpose. Jung posited that this particular personality type accrues power predominantly because most individuals remain oblivious to their own unconscious motivations and internal shadows. They fail to comprehend how effortlessly desire can transform into a controlling leash. The manipulator of desire does not exert control through overt force or coercion. Rather, they achieve their objective by ingeniously turning your own intrinsic longings and aspirations against you. The unspoken arbiter of judgment. The second personality type is arguably even more insidious: the silent judge. This is an individual who never finds it necessary to raise their voice, engage in arguments, or even offer explanations for their perspective. Their influence stems from their ability to simply emanate a pervasive standard of judgment, so potent and pervasive that you instinctively feel yourself diminish and shrink in their presence. This phenomenon is observable in parents, educators, and even romantic partners, sometimes occurring without their conscious awareness. You might find yourself seated opposite such a person, and suddenly your words stumble, your thoughts become disjointed. You experience the profound weight of being meticulously evaluated, And that invisible, unspoken courtroom becomes significantly more influential than any formal debate or direct conversation could ever be. Jung explained that this type exerts control because they embody the superego, that internalized voice of authority and societal expectation that is imprinted within all of us. When you encounter an individual who amplifies this internal voice, you regress, metaphorically becoming a child once more. You find yourself compelled to defend your actions, to justify your choices, and you experience a profound sense of condemnation, even if the other person has uttered not a single critical word. This type does not entice through desire. Their method of seduction is rooted in shame, and shame, Jung firmly believed, constituted one of the most profoundly debilitating and paralyzing forces within the human psyche. The unpredictable instigator. Following these, we encounter the trickster, arguably the most perilous of all the archetypes. The trickster thrives within environments of chaos and unpredictability. Their propensity for deceit extends beyond others, often encompassing self-deception. They are living paradoxes, contradictions veiled by an engaging smile. Initially, they might appear benign, even entertaining. They possess the knack for eliciting laughter, charming those around them, and effectively disarming any potential skepticism. However, Jung recognized that the trickster embodies an ancient and formidable power, the ability to destabilize your fundamental sense of reality. After an encounter with a trickster, you often walk away feeling uncertain of your own convictions, questioning the accuracy of your memories and doubting the reliability of your own instincts. One day they might exhibit profound kindness, only to betray you the next. In one moment they appear fragile and vulnerable, only to reveal a cruel and ruthless side in the subsequent instant. The trickster does not require direct control over you. Their strategy is simply to entangle you in a complex web of illusions until you are no longer capable of discerning what is genuinely true. And when the bedrock of truth crumbles, you paradoxically cling to them for stability, despite the fact that they were the very source of its erosion. Jung cautioned that tricksters manifest not only in personal relationships, but also permeate the realms of politics, religion, and broader culture. They are the figures who proffer promises of salvation with one hand while concealing a weapon in the other. They flourish on contradictions because contradictions inherently foster and sustain your dependence. The veil of unawareness. This raises a crucial question. If these archetypes wield such immense power, why do we consistently fail to perceive them? The answer lies in the inherent fragility of our egos. We prefer to believe that we are rational, independent, and free-thinking individuals. We cherish the notion that no one can exert control over us. Yet Jung unveiled a more disconcerting truth. The human psyche is permeable. We are not self-contained, closed systems. We are intrinsically susceptible to energies, to archetypes, and to personality influences that subtly infiltrate beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. You fail to recognize the manipulator of desire because you are drawn to and yearn for what they seemingly offer. You do not perceive the silent judge because you already harbor an intrinsic fear of condemnation. You remain oblivious to the trickster because their carefully constructed illusions often feel more comforting and secure than the harshness of reality. Consequently, you navigate through life under the impression that you are the captain confidently steering your own vessel, when in actuality, you are being swept along by currents far more ancient and infinitely more powerful than your conscious will. The moment of revelation. Once you begin the process of identifying and recognizing these archetypal personality types, a profound transformation occurs. You cease to be a passive participant in their intricate games. You start to become aware of the subtle tug of desire before it fully ensnares you, to feel the oppressive weight of judgment before it completely crushes your spirit, and to detect the intricate threads of trickery before they inextricably tangle your perception. However, here is the crucial insight Jung would have wanted you to internalize. These archetypes do not exclusively reside within other individuals. They are also deeply embedded within you. Your own psyche contains its own manipulator, its own judge, and its own trickster. The fundamental reason you succumb to their influence when they manifest in others is precisely because you have not yet confronted and integrated these forces within yourself. The allure of seduction, the impact of judgment, and the bewildering effect of trickery hold sway over you because they remain unresolved aspects within your own being. This realization is simultaneously terrifying and profoundly liberating. It is terrifying because it forces you to acknowledge that you are never as truly free as you once believed. Yet it is liberating because once you squarely face these potent forces within yourself, they forfeit their ability to control you through the actions and influences of others. But this understanding represents merely the initial stage, for Jung identified far more than just these three archetypes. There exist deeper, darker archetypes that not only influence your emotions, but fundamentally dictate the very trajectory of your destiny. And upon their revelation, you will discern the pervasive influence they wield over entire societal structures, historical narratives, and individual trajectories. An unseen governance you previously failed to acknowledge. Should the orchestrator of desire, the silent arbiter, and the cunning deceiver prove insufficient to dislodge your sense of complacency, Jung's insights delved even deeper. He issued a stark caution that additional archetypal figures are intricately interwoven into the fundamental tapestry of human existence, wielding an even more suffocating degree of dominion. These are not merely individuals capable of swaying your emotional landscape. Rather, they represent forces that seize the reins of your destiny, meticulously directing the choices you make, the partners you pursue, the patterns of failure you repeatedly encounter, and even the very lens through which you perceive yourself. The shadow bearer. The fourth archetypal category, as designated by Jung, is the shadow bearer. This individual is the unconscious vessel for those aspects of yourself that you have actively suppressed. Initially, their presence will go entirely unnoticed by you. However, an inexplicable quality about them will begin to disturb you. They will provoke your irritation. They will instigate your reactions. They will trigger profound responses within you, and your internal monologue will rationalize this by attributing flaws to them: selfishness, arrogance, cruelty, weakness. Yet Jung countered this perspective. He asserted that the shadow bearer exerts control over you precisely because they embody those very characteristics you steadfastly refuse to acknowledge within your own being. Your critical assessments of them are, in essence, reflective surfaces. Your animosity towards them is a displaced form of self-hatred. Consider the colleague whose demeanor perpetually grates on your nerves, the friend whose presence you find intolerable, the stranger who elicits immediate and profound revulsion. Frequently, their actions are entirely unremarkable. They are simply serving as a mirror, reflecting back to you the very traits you have meticulously buried. And here lies the most alarming revelation. As long as you persist in your blindness to your own shadow, the shadow bearer retains absolute authority over you. They dictate your emotional states, your behavioral responses, and your inner tranquility. You dedicate your life to resisting them, to condemning them, to engaging in gossip about them, when in actuality you are engaged in a battle with yourself. The shadow bearer has no need for manipulation. Their mere existence suffices, and your unacknowledged darkness completes the process. The devourer. The fifth archetypal figure is the devourer. In contrast to the manipulator or the judge, the devourer does not engage in elaborate games. Their nature is to consume. These are the individuals whose very presence depletes your vitality, whose needs consistently overshadow your own, whose crises absorb every last vestige of your energy. They manifest as the friend perpetually in need of rescue, the partner who crumbles without your constant support, the parent who demands ceaseless self-sacrifice. Initially, this dynamic can feel inherently noble. You experience a sense of being indispensable, significant, and valuable. However, as Jung cautioned, with the passage of time, the unvarnished truth becomes apparent. The devourer does not merely lean on you. They systematically consume you until nothing of your original self remains. Jung identified this pattern across mythology, historical accounts, and psychological phenomena. The archetype of the devouring mother, the tyrannical father, the manipulative child, the toxic leader. The devourer flourishes because you mistakenly equate their need with genuine affection. You are convinced that your self-sacrifice is irrefutable proof of your inherent goodness. But Jung possessed a superior understanding. He declared that those who give without limit or boundary are not saintly figures. They are, in fact, victims. And the devourer thrives precisely on such victims. This particular archetype controls you by implanting the belief that your intrinsic worth is directly proportional to the amount of suffering you can endure. And once you accept this insidious falsehood, their insatiable appetite will never cease. The savior mask. Finally, we encounter the false savior. This archetype is arguably the most alluring of all, precisely because they do not present themselves as a menace, but rather as your ultimate solution. They position themselves as the individual destined to rescue you, to guide you, to redeem you. They instill within you a feeling of being chosen, extraordinary, and safeguarded. They pledge to extricate you from despair, to illuminate the truth, and to furnish you with a sense of purpose you are incapable of discovering on your own. Yet Jung recognized the inherent peril. The false savior does not restore your inherent power. Instead, they demand that you relinquish it to them. Their act of rescue comes at the steep cost of your autonomy. Their guidance gradually transforms into an inescapable dependence. Their imposed purpose supplants your own authentic aspirations. Entire religious systems have been constructed upon this archetypal foundation. Movements, ideologies, and even the most intimate personal relationships are rife with such figures. The false savior prospers on the desperation of those who feel lost. They shine most brightly during your moments of greatest vulnerability. And here resides the most cruel irony. The more you surrender, the more secure you begin to feel. Until the stark realization dawns upon you that you have meticulously constructed your entire existence around someone else's narrative. The false savior does not merely dictate your choices, they commandeer your very sense of meaning. And when an individual controls your meaning, they effectively control your entire life. The six controllers. Thus they stand revealed, the manipulator of desire, the silent judge, the trickster, the shadow bearer, the devourer, and the false savior. These six archetypal figures, Jung posited, were not incidental occurrences, nor were they mere idiosyncratic personality quirks, but rather primordial forces emanating from the depths of the psyche, ancient archetypes that have shaped the entirety of humanity since its inception. And once you commence the process of mapping these archetypes onto the contours of your own life, a disquieting phenomenon begins to unfold. You will perceive their presence everywhere, within your familial relationships, in your friendships, in your romantic entanglements, among your leaders, and even within yourself. Suddenly, moments that once felt utterly baffling become astonishingly clear. The breakup that left you emotionally devastated, the friendship that systematically drained your energy, the mentor who ultimately betrayed your trust, the endless cycles you swore you would never repeat. These were not random occurrences. They were the inevitable consequence of succumbing to the influence and control of these six archetypal forces. The trap Jung warned about. However, here lies the inherent pitfall that Jung cautioned against. Once you successfully identify these archetypes, it becomes remarkably easy to cast them as pure antagonists. It is effortless to harbor animosity toward the manipulator, to despise the judge, to fear the trickster, to resent the devourer, and to expose the false savior. Yet Jung adamantly maintained that this represents only half of the transformative journey, because these archetypes do not exclusively reside externally in the world. They also reside within you. Every instance in which you resort to manipulation to achieve your desired outcome, you embody the manipulator. Every time you silently pass judgment, you become the judge. Every occasion you destabilize others through contradictory actions or statements, you transform into the trickster. Every moment you project your own unacknowledged darkness onto others, you become the shadow bearer. Every instance you consume from others without offering reciprocal contribution, you become the devourer. Every time you demand unwavering devotion in exchange for your assistance, you assume the role of the false savior. And this is precisely why these archetypes possess such profound power over you. You unconsciously recognize them because they function as intricate reflections of your own inner psyche. The subsequent critical question, therefore, is not whether you will encounter these archetypes. You already have. You always will. The true question lies in whether you will remain perpetually controlled by them, or whether you will endeavor to integrate them, master their influence, and transcend the intricate games they perpetually play. For Jung firmly believed this. You cannot obliterate these fundamental forces. Your only recourse is to bring them into conscious awareness, to confront them directly, and to cultivate the strength to stand as their equal. Otherwise, they will exert control over your existence from the unseen depths. Subsequently, in the concluding segment, we will delve even further into the profound ways these 6 archetypes sculpt not merely interpersonal connections, but entire societal structures, and how the act of discerning them could serve as the foundational step in liberating oneself from an entire lifetime of imperceptible dominion. You have now been introduced to the 6 distinct personality types against which Jung issued a warning. These include the orchestrator of longing, the taciturn arbiter, the dissembler, the bearer of darkness, the insatiable consumer, and the deceptive redeemer. These 6 potent forces do not merely exert a casual influence upon you. Rather, they subtly but profoundly shape the very trajectory of your life's journey. And the more frequently you become aware of their presence, the more disquieting the realization becomes. This is because you suddenly grasp that they are not mere anomalies. They are, in fact, ubiquitous. They are the countenances you observe within the throngs of people. Reflect upon those individuals who have left the most indelible imprint on your life. Consider the romantic partner who maintained their hold over you, even when you possess the clear understanding that their influence was detrimental. This is the orchestrator of longing. Ponder the parent whose silent disapproval continues to reverberate in the recesses of your consciousness. This embodies the taciturn arbiter. Recall the figure in authority who compelled you to question the very fabric of reality itself, that is the dissembler. Think of the individual who consistently provoked your vexation, the bearer of darkness. Remember the companion who systematically depleted your vitality, perpetually demanding more. This is the insatiable consumer. And finally, consider the persona who pledged to provide salvation, yet ultimately fostered your dependence, the deceptive redeemer. Now endeavor to envision an entire civilization molded by the pervasive influence of these archetypes. Picture the political figures who manipulate through an endless stream of pledges. Envision the religious doctrines that pass judgment through the cultivation of culpability. Contemplate the corporate entities that ensnare you with elaborate deceptions. Observe the cultural currents that project their collective shadow onto convenient scapegoats. Witness the systemic frameworks that relentlessly consume your precious time, your diligent labor, and your precious health. And finally, behold the purported saviors who proffer solutions exclusively on the condition that you relinquish your autonomy. Suddenly, Jung's profound insights transcend the mere explanation of your private existence. They illuminate historical narratives. They unravel the complexities of power dynamics. They elucidate precisely why successive generations repeatedly succumb to identical pitfalls, the clandestine orchestrators of societal mechanisms. Jung recognized that the human psyche was not solely a personal construct. It possessed a collective dimension. Consequently, these 6 archetypes do not manifest exclusively as individual personalities. They emerge as established institutions, as prevailing ideologies, and as burgeoning movements. Entire empires have ascended to prominence under the beguiling enchantment of the orchestrator of longing. Whole civilizations have bowed in deference to the unwavering authority of the taciturn arbiter. Numerous nations have been led astray by the cunning machinations of the dissembler. Countless conflicts have been instigated and waged in the name of projected shadows. Vast populations have been systematically depleted by insatiable consumers masquerading as benefactors. And billions have willingly surrendered their volition to deceptive redeemers who promised an idyllic existence. This underscores why Jung's body of work possesses an unparalleled relevance in the contemporary era, for he discerned that humanity's suffering is not solely attributable to external adversaries. Humanity grapples with the pervasive influence of archetypes, which are inherent patterns of the psyche that we erroneously accept as objective reality. And until such time as you clearly perceive them, true liberation will remain elusive. The personal confinement. Nevertheless, let us redirect this discourse back to your individual experience, because it is effortlessly convenient to point fingers at society, at historical occurrences, or at political landscapes. The genuinely pertinent inquiry is this: in what specific ways are these 6 archetypes currently exerting control over your daily existence? Who is it that compels you to relentlessly chase their approbation as if it were an addictive substance? Who is it that causes you to diminish your stature under the weight of unspoken judgment? Who is it that keeps you entertained with laughter while simultaneously undermining your fundamental stability? Who is it that incites your animosity because they embody the very shadow aspects you suppress? Who is it that drains your vital energy until you reach a state of collapse? Who is it that instills in you a sense of being rescued, but only contingent upon your complete surrender of self? These are not abstract philosophical ponderings. They constitute the definitive blueprint of your own personal prison. And until you discern these faces with absolute clarity, until you accurately label them for what they intrinsically are, you will persistently misinterpret control as affection, manipulation as fidelity, exploitation as predetermined fate, and your reflection as the authentic self. However, here lies the most formidable truth that Jung bequeathed to us. These archetypes wield power over you precisely because you harbor them within your own being. The orchestrator of longing manifests within you when you employ charm as a substitute for genuine honesty. The arbiter resides within you when you condemn without the slightest trace of compassion. The dissembler surfaces within you when you distort truth to cater to the demands of your ego. The bearer of darkness is present within you when you project your own imperfections onto others. The insatiable consumer emerges within you when you take incessantly without offering anything in return. The deceptive redeemer is active within you when you demand dependence from others instead of fostering their growth. And it is for these very reasons that they exert such effortless control over you. Because your apprehension of them is not solely directed at others, you also harbor a profound fear of these qualities within yourself. The true conflict is not external. It resides internally within the concealed chambers of your own psyche, the Jungian trajectory. So what course of action should one take with this acquired knowledge? Jung never advocated for the eradication of these fundamental forces. Such an endeavor is an impossibility. They are an intrinsic component of the human condition, as ancient as mythological narratives, as universally present as the very act of breathing. However, he did instruct us to integrate them, to elevate them into conscious awareness, to recognize their emergence in others, and to acknowledge their manifestation within ourselves. To cease being mere puppets of unconscious archetypes and instead become deliberate and aware participants in the unfolding of our own lives. That precisely is the path of individuation, the journey toward achieving wholeness. When you perceive the orchestrator of longing, you simultaneously recognize your own inherent yearning for desire. When you confront the arbiter, you directly face your own feelings of shame. When you encounter the dissembler, you rigorously test your own grasp of truth. When you come face to face with the shadow, you embrace your own intrinsic darkness. When you resist the insatiable consumer, you cultivate and establish healthy boundaries. When you unmask the deceptive redeemer, you reclaim your inherent power. And in undertaking these actions, you are no longer subjected to control. You are no longer vulnerable prey. You are no longer operating under a veil of ignorance, the perilous liberty. Nevertheless, allow me to be unsparingly candid. This newfound freedom is not easily attained. It is not characterized by comfort, and it is certainly not without its dangers. Because once you perceive these archetypes, once you discern their recurring patterns, there is no possibility of retreating. You will no longer be capable of viewing relationships in the same undiscriminating manner. You will no longer be able to unconditionally revere leaders without a healthy dose of skepticism. You will no longer be able to cling to comforting illusions without detecting the insidious whisper of manipulation lurking beneath them. This is the inherent cost of awareness. The solace of ignorance is irrevocably lost. However, this is also the profound gift of awareness. No individual or entity will ever be capable of controlling you in the identical manner again. The suspenseful conclusion. Thus, here you stand, possessing the metaphorical map that Jung bequeathed to us, the 6 personality types that surreptitiously govern your life. The pertinent question now is not whether you will encounter them, for you undoubtedly already have. The crucial question is whether you will permit them to continue dictating your choices, or whether you will resolutely confront them within your own being and thereby break free from their enchantment. For Carl Jung held the conviction that an individual who boldly confronts these primal patterns does not merely endure their presence, instead they are transformed into an entity of greater substance, an essence beyond harm, a state of complete integration. Ultimately, this represents the sole, authentic liberation. It is not found in fleeing from these 6 distinct classifications, but rather in evolving beyond the grasp of their influence.